Here's our final conversion, decimals to fractions. The second one that's actually very difficult for students to do. So this is how it goes. The rule that I've written down is, and the students have this already, is write the number as a fraction as you would say it using place value, reduce the fraction. I'm going to explain. Before we get any further, I've written a number, 374.6815. This is just a little refresher. When there's one number, the first number after the decimal is in the tenths place. The second number is in the hundredths. The third is in the thousandths. And the last is in the 10,000s. So you have to remember that. Tenths, hundredths, thousands, 10,000s. We don't really look at these ones. We look at after the decimal. So we'll start off very simply. Notice that this number only has 0.3, has one number after the decimal. So if it only ends in one number after the decimal, I know that this fraction will be written as tenths. In other words, it will have a 10 on the bottom or on the denominator. So I will write it as tenths. And this number here that's after the decimal is the one that's written on the top. So that's why we already know that 0.3 is 3/10, right? And 0.64, it has two numbers after the decimal, right? So we know that two numbers after the decimal are in the hundredths place, right? So we know that's going to be over 100. And these are the numbers, the two that are after the decimal are the ones that go on the top. Now the only problem with this is, as I said, now that you've written the fraction 64 over 100, we have to reduce the fraction where students have a real hard time. So I know that both of these will divide by 4. Not all students can see that, so they might only just divide by 2. So I'm going to take the long route, although I know there's shortcuts. So 64 divided by 2 is 32. 100 divided by 2 is 50. Once again, I divide by 2. And I get 16 over 25. And that's where we stop. Because 16 over 25 cannot be reduced any further. You cannot divide 32 or 50 by, or 16 and 25 by any other number. So it is reduced. Okay, final. And as of course 3/10 was also, you can't reduce that either. 8.128, notice that we have three numbers after the decimal. Always look after the decimal. So three numbers after the decimal means we're looking at thousands. So this will be, oh, and by the way, this one has a whole number on this side, right? Not just a 0, 0 like these two had. So the 8 will be written kind of on its own. We write that first as a whole number. This is the fractional part now with tenths, hundredths, thousands, right? So it'll be thousands on the bottom. And this number, 0.1, the 128, goes on the top. So in fact, this fraction is what we call a mixed number. It is 8 and 128 over 1,000. So we're done? No, we're not. We have to reduce. So we must find what number divides into both. Of course, since they both are even numbers, 8 and 0, they can both divide by 2. So we know that this will be 8 and we divide that by 2 again, 64 over 500, which again, divide that by 2. We get 8 and 32 over 250, which again, we divide by 2 again. There's always shortcuts. We get 8 and 16 over 125. Final answer. Next one, last one. 75.55. We have a whole number which stays in the front. And now the 0.55 is the fractional part. We look after the decimal, we get two numbers. So that number is tenths, hundredths. So we put this over 100. And we put the 55 on the top. So we have 75 and 55 hundredths. So this is what I'm saying. We want to write the number as we would say it. This is 8 and 128 thousandths. This is 64 hundredths. This is 3 tenths. And so we have 75 and 55 hundredths. But I must divide these both by 5 because they end in 5 and 0. So we get 75 and 11 twentieths. And that is the final answer. And again, this is why this is another tricky conversion, but that's all of them. So I hope you review all those lessons and become very familiar. All it takes is practice.